Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching A News. Let's take a look at the top stories for the hour. US envoys meet with mediators in Qatar, but no face-to-face meeting with Iranian officials. European Commission President will visit Azerbaijan today in her first trip to the South Caucasus this year. And Afghanistan's Taliban has carried out strikes on targets along the border with Pakistan. First this afternoon, Qatar and Iran say that there are no high-level US-Iran meetings scheduled this week. Tehran says it's ruled out direct talks with senior US envoys in Doha, clouding prospects for a lasting peace between both countries. Let's go to this report.
Top US envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff have arrived in Doha. However, Iran says it won't meet with them. Qatari mediators are expected to hold separate discussions with both delegations after Iran ruled out direct talks with the United States. Tehran says the priority is to resolve the terms of the ceasefire agreed 2 weeks ago before moving on to more contentious issues, including possible limits on its nuclear program.
The discussions are about implementing the provisions of the Memorandum of Understanding, including the clause related to the release of Iran's restricted assets, which will be conducted with Qatari parties. Therefore, I once again emphasize that no meeting at any level with the American side has been scheduled for the coming days.
The initial framework calls for Iran to ease restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for financial incentives. It also sets out a 60-day negotiating period aimed at securing a permanent peace deal. Shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has partially resumed. However, Iran says it has the right to manage traffic alongside Oman and intends to introduce tolls when the 60-day negotiating period expires. US Vice President J.D. Vance rejected that idea, saying Iran would not be allowed to charge ships using the international waterway. Oil prices have fallen since the weekend despite the uncertainty, but the UN Trade and Development Agency warns vulnerable economies could still face higher food and fuel costs.
And joining me now to discuss the latest between Iran and the United States is Enrique Cosero, political analyst from Madrid, Spain. Enrique, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's begin with today's diplomacy. US envoys are in Doha, yet Qatari officials say there will be no direct meeting with Iranian representatives. What's your assessment of this continuing diplomacy, even indirectly?
The real thing here is not the first time, and we can say that direct meetings have been more the anecdote than the rule itself. So it's again one of the many steps in order to reach an agreement that just the memorandum of understanding didn't get yet. So in this terms, I think we're just starting over. We are probably 20, 30 steps back, and right now it's not going to be. I think there is not going to be any differential from any other given moment. The fact here is that, and it's just I just suspect that it's not something that I got proved. But I suspect here that Iran has no clear or not a defined leadership. So all these movements, all these attacks, all these ceasefire breakings, all this mess is taking place probably because there is no clear leadership on the Iran side. So let's see what's going on. Let's see if this is gonna be hopefully the ultimate step in order to reach an agreement. But I really doubt so.
Okay. So does the absence of direct talks necessarily indicate a lack of progress? I mean, I know you say that there's no defined leadership. But there have been talks previously, even through mediation. It was Pakistan previously, and the MOU is out there, but the violations continue with the ceasefires. What's your assessment there?
As I said before, I think there is no clear leadership. So the guy who's in charge of negotiations got no control over the attacks. I have no proof of this, but the rhythm, the pace, the sort of operations, as long as how the things are going, tells me that we got this pairing of leaderships in diplomacy and military action or combat action, right? So I don't think you talk about lack. I don't think it's a lack. I think it's a complete absence right now. The United States has no counterpart in order to talk. I think that's the reason why these conversations are not through a proxy, which
Enrique, can you hear me, or have we lost Enrique?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay. So you're just cutting out there. I'll ask you one other question, just for the sake of moving on, and we'll see how we go with the connection. Now, Qatar has become the principal intermediary between Washington and Tehran now. Why has Doha proved such an effective diplomatic channel, do you think?
I think it's because this is not the first conversations, or this is not the first intermediation and negotiations that Qatar has been performing for the United States. For this matter, Qatar has been a very loyal proxy for the United States conversations, not only with Iran, but with Hamas or even the Taliban. So I think that experience and that knowing how to treat both sides of the negotiations, especially when on one side you got the United States and the other side something as much as diverse, as I said, the Taliban, Hamas, or Iran, it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna give all the credit to Qatar. So I think that's the main reason why Qatar is taking prominence on the negotiations as intermediate, just above from Pakistan.
And now one of the reported issues is the possible release of frozen Iranian assets. Why is that issue so politically and economically significant for Tehran?
Because I think Iran is broke, completely broke. We can relate this with why Iran is trying to charge the Strait of Hormuz free way, not free, but the way on the ships on the Strait of Hormuz. They want to charge the pass of the commercial ships, and the reason is because I think we are just talking about the war, and we are talking about just from the combat side of the things. But economically, Iran is not. I think they're in a deep crisis right now, so they're gonna try to get all the money they can get from everywhere they can get it. So from everywhere they can get it. So that's the reason why one of the points of the memorandum was reparations. They need the money. So as much as they can, as much as they found different sources of money to finish it for financing the regime and financing the country, they're gonna get it. So it's not gonna be it's not a subtle issue on the conversations, and it's not gonna be a subtle issue on why the Strait of Hormuz is not completely or in a free way open right now.
So could progress on assets then become an early measure of whether both sides intend to honour the agreement?
I think this is the rope on the neck of Iran from the United States, that freezing of the assets, And we know for sure that is not as I said, it's not a trivial question for Iran. Those frozen assets, Iran, they need that money as soon as they can, and it's not. I think that is the main way and the main tool for the United States in order to get a profitable agreement on the peace talks. But again, we are talking about talking about an agreement and peace talks for many weeks now, months, or it's going to be a year on the next day. So I don't think this is. I think this is not trivial for Iran. This is not an unimportant piece of the matter on Iran. But I think we talked weeks ago about Iran got no fear to lose, or as much as I think they're prone to lose more in order to get a profitable agreement than the United States. So that is the Iranian advantage right now.
Enrique, thank you so much for joining us and for your analysis today. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Iran is preparing for a huge week-long farewell and burial procession of its former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed that neighbouring Iraq will also partially host the rituals. Turaj Shiraliu brings us this report from Azadiya Square in Tehran.
Massive preparations are underway in Iran to pay tribute to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, killed by Israeli U.S. air raids in February. His funeral was postponed for 4 months because of wartime conditions, which lasted 40 days. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed that the procession of the body will be held in neighboring Iraq as well. In a post on the social platform X, he wrote that, like Iran, Iraq is preparing for a mass funeral for Grand Ayatollah Khamenei, an event that will undoubtedly be remembered by history and further strengthen the bonds between our two nations. The procession will start on Saturday, the 4th of July, and will last for a week. It will be held in multiple cities, mainly in the capital Tehran and the religious cities of Qom and Mashhad, where he will be laid to rest. In addition to 1 day of nationwide public holiday next Monday, it was announced that there will be 2 days of holidays in Tehran over the weekend and 2 days of holidays in Qom and Mashhad to host millions of mourners. Also, there will be restrictions on domestic and international flights, reportedly for logistic reasons, and entrance to Tehran by car will be limited to parking lots at the city's border districts. Deputy Foreign Minister and head of the funeral headquarters, Ali Akbar Purjamshidian, said at a press conference that more than 30 countries and religious leaders from more than 90 countries have voiced their readiness to attend the funeral. Meantime, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said in an interview on state IRIB TV that no official from European countries participating in the Israeli-US war with Iran has been invited to attend the funeral. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led the post-revolution Iran for nearly 4 decades and shaped its domestic and foreign policies more than any other political figure of his generation. His burial rituals are both a tribute to his legacy and a demonstration of post-war political resilience and continuity, which resulted in the leadership of his son, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei. Turaj Shiralilu from Tehran for A News.
Lebanon is advancing post-war efforts after Iran's top negotiator Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf said Iran, the United States and Lebanon have agreed to establish a committee to oversee the end of the war in Lebanon. The developments come as Lebanon's Social Affairs Minister says around 400,000 displaced people have returned to southern Lebanon following a lull in the 4-month conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Meanwhile, during a visit to what Israel describes as a security zone inside southern Lebanon, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israeli troops will remain there as long as Hezbollah poses a threat.
Because we achieved, thanks to your action here, Lebanon recognizes Israel. Israel recognizes Lebanon. And we are saying to both Iran and Hezbollah, get out of here. You have nothing to do here. There are two states, sovereignty, wanting to make peace between them, wanting to truly restore a reality of security and prosperity to the residents of the north and also to the residents of Lebanon. You need to leave. This is a slap in the face, a punch in the face of the Iranian Axis, and it will not necessarily pass quietly. We are very proud of what we have achieved thanks to your courageous action and the decisions we have made. Our insistence is that we will not leave southern Lebanon until the threat is eliminated, and as long as Hezbollah, armed, is here, threatening us, we will stay here.
And over to Gaza now. Following last year's ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, efforts are continuing to address security, aid delivery and reconstruction. The Board of Peace and other mediators are holding talks on the territory's future administration, while an international security force expands its presence on the ground. Reporter Nick Harper has more.
Well, the multinational security team is gradually increasing its presence in Gaza. The International Security Force, as it's known, is based there as part of the continuing efforts to maintain peace following the ceasefire last year. The Board of Peace is now aiming to try and capitalise on that ceasefire by securing the area and ensuring Israeli troops fully withdraw from the Palestinian enclave. The force is also there to try and help the delivery of humanitarian aid and also the materials that are needed for the reconstruction of Gaza. All of this happening at the same time that a delegation of Hamas representatives has held talks in Cairo with Egyptian officials and mediators there. The long-term plan agreed in the peace plan is that Hamas will be replaced by a committee of Palestinian technocrats. Talks are underway in Cyprus as well this week, aimed at establishing a post-war system to manage the Strip. However, the last few months have been characterised by rocky relations, slow progress and little unity. And it's still not clear how much progress will be made this week as part of those talks. Also, a problem appears to be that there is a lack of funds for the board to use and its ambitious reconstruction plans, with the promised billions of dollars yet to materialise. Nick Harper for A News in Washington.
The death toll from this week's twin earthquakes in Venezuela has risen to nearly 2,000, according to authorities. Thousands of people have been injured and many more have been left homeless. Rescue teams, supported by international crews, continue searching for survivors, while emergency shelters remain open for displaced families. The US military has also deployed forces to support relief efforts and reopening airport operations and helping deliver humanitarian aid. We'll continue with the main stories of the day after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching A News. Ukrainian drones have struck targets in Russia's Penza region, causing a fire at a state-owned industrial facility. That's according to Russian and Ukrainian sources. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the attack hit a facility linked to Russia's military-industrial complex. He also claimed a separate strike which targeted an oil refinery in Ufa for a second time. Meanwhile, Russian strikes on the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia killed at least 2 people and injured more than a dozen others, according to officials. Several glide bombs hit the city, damaging residential areas. NATO is reinforcing its eastern flank with a new command structure for the Baltics as the US and Germany reaffirmed their commitment to defend the alliance against potential Russian aggression. Anita Sharma has the details.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where the US and Germany are sending a message of unity to NATO's eastern flank, vowing to stand firmly behind the alliance's Baltic allies in the face of continued Russian aggression. The top U.S. Army commander for NATO land forces says the U.S. will stand with its allies in defending the region if they come under attack. Lieutenant General Christopher Donahue delivered the message from the Estonian border town of Valga as NATO formally assigned a second multinational corps headquarters to strengthen the defense of Estonia and Latvia in the event of conflict with Russia. Until now, NATO forces in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and northern Poland have been directed from a single headquarters in Szczecin, Poland. The new command zone will strengthen the alliance's ability to reinforce the Baltics with multinational divisions in Estonia and Latvia now placed under the German-Netherlands Corps in Münster. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius called the move, quote, a visible and strong demonstration of NATO's unity, readiness, and collective determination to defend every inch of Allied territory. Donahue, who hands over command tomorrow, also praised European allies for stepping up defense spending and turning commitments into action. However, the reassurance comes at a sensitive time. U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly demanded that Europe take greater responsibility for its own security, while Washington has begun scaling back some of the military capabilities it makes available to NATO during a crisis. European governments are responding with higher defense spending and larger military commitments, but questions remain over whether Europe can fully replace key U.S. capabilities if the U.S. continues to reduce its role. For Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, those questions are especially urgent. The three Baltic states border Russia or its ally Belarus and are widely regarded as NATO's most vulnerable members. NATO has already warned Russia could be capable of launching a major attack on Allied territory as early as 2029, although the Kremlin denies any such intention. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
Norwegian, British and Turkish, as well as other NATO forces, joined US-hosted exercises off the North Carolina coast, rehearsing boarding operations, anti-submarine warfare and amphibious assaults. The drills come as the Trump administration reviews US force levels in Europe and questions whether allies are doing enough on defence. Military commanders say operational cooperation remains strong despite political tensions. However, experts say if the Pentagon moves ahead with plans to reduce NATO's reliance on US troops, it could mean fewer joint exercises in the future. Trade between Europe and the United States is set to become easier after the European Union removed tariffs on US industrial imports. Brussels says the move strengthens transatlantic trade while keeping safeguards in place to protect European businesses.
Greater choice and better prices. That's what the European Commission President says will be delivered to businesses and consumers. Ursula von der Leyen commented on social media and said that now the EU eliminates tariffs on imports of US industrial products. It's after the Council formally adopted 2 regulations implementing the tariff-related commitments that were set out under the EU-US joint statement agreed last year. She said it reinforces what she called the world's most valuable transatlantic relationship. The new rules also provide preferential access for certain American seafood and non-sensitive agricultural products through tariff rate quotas and reduced duties. They also extend the suspension of tax hikes on lobster imports, including processed lobster. EU ministers say the measures are designed to support stable and predictable trade while protecting European economic interests. The legislation includes strengthened safeguard mechanisms, allowing the European Commission to respond quickly if imports surge or if the United States fails to meet its commitments under the agreement. The main regulation will remain in force until the end of 2029, when the European Commission will assess its impact on trade flows, tariff revenue and economic effects, before deciding whether to propose an extension. The EU and the United States trade relationship represent almost 30% of global business in goods and services.
A senior European Union delegation has visited Ankara for talks on Turkey-EU relations, security, migration, trade and connectivity. The discussions also covered regional issues, including the South Caucasus, where both sides say they will coordinate efforts to support peace, prosperity and stronger economic links.
Turkey and the European Union are seeking to give new momentum to their relationship, covering security, migration, trade, and regional connectivity. It's after meetings at high-level talks in Ankara on Tuesday, with the South Caucasus among the main areas discussed. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos, and Migration Commissioner Magnus Brunner were received by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. They also held talks with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. Regarding the South Caucasus region, Turkey and the EU said they would coordinate complementary efforts to support peace and prosperity. They agreed to work on stronger connectivity, trade and economic links, and support concrete steps towards that goal.
Competition between global powers is growing. Businesses are looking for more reliable supply chains. Countries want more options for trade, energy and digital connections. This gives the European Union and Turkey a shared opportunity, a big opportunity. Together, we can help build a region that is better connected, more competitive and less dependent. Turkey's geography gives it a unique position between Europe, the South Caucasus, Asia and the Middle East.
The meetings also addressed Ukraine, Russia and Africa, as well as cooperation in trade, energy, transport and digitalization. Migration and security were also discussed, including border management, migrant smuggling, and cooperation in a complementary manner with NATO. The focus comes as the EU works to strengthen routes between Europe and Central Asia through the Black Sea region and the South Caucasus. The bloc has already launched a connectivity agenda platform last month, expected to mobilize up to €2 billion for strategic connectivity investments. Turkey and the EU agreed to continue high-level dialogues before the end of the year. The upcoming talks are expected to cover economy, trade, migration and security, health, science, innovation and agriculture.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's visit to is visiting Azerbaijan today, followed by a trip to Armenia. It comes at an important moment for the South Caucasus. Talks are expected to focus on EU-Azerbaijan relations, energy cooperation and broader regional issues. EU Commissioner for Enlargement Marta Kos will accompany her as the European Union works to strengthen transport, energy and digital ties across the region. Von der Leyen last visited Azerbaijan in 2022 when she signed a deal to boost gas supplies to the European Union. And joining me now to discuss the visit by the European Commission President is Cengiz Mammadov. He's research alumni at NED and Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars in Baku, Azerbaijan. Cengiz, welcome to the program.
Thanks for inviting me today. Nice meeting you and our viewers. Thank you.
Now, this is the first visit by the President of the European Commission since Azerbaijan and Armenia signed their historic peace agreement. How much has that changed Brussels' approach to the region, do you think?
Really, just to clarify, peace agreement has not been signed. Agreed.
Initialed.
In Washington, yes, the agreement is not signed because very often I see, in media that peace agreement has been signed. As Azerbaijan expressed it, until changes are made in constitution of Armenia, peace agreement cannot be signed. I think this is important to emphasize. Mm-hmm. But you are right. This is the first visit since, let's say, positive events happened between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and it comes also as an aftermath also visit of Kaja Kallas and Marta Kos, which is accompanying Ursula von der Leyen to Baku after their visit to Turkey. I think this is also important. Plus, after visiting Azerbaijan, they will travel to Armenia and will meet with Armenian leadership. I think this is important visits, and they indicate new geopolitical situation that was created in the South Caucasus and in the entire region in the aftermath of resolving between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and after sovereignty of Azerbaijan has been restored, and Armenian leadership also took very pragmatic route towards improving relations with both Azerbaijan and Turkey.
And Cengiz, has this peace or this track to peace, if you like, created opportunities that simply didn't exist before?
Yes, absolutely. Because just for recalling the history, actually, the communication east and west, not through Georgia, but because at that time Armenia was occupying Azerbaijani territory, and Armenia refused actually to remove the forces from Azerbaijani territory. All routes went through Georgia. Now, after Azerbaijan restored its sovereignty and Armenian leadership took a pragmatic, realistic, and I would also call position which is in the interest of Armenia itself, now there is possibility to open communications also through Armenia. Even if peace agreement will not sign it with Armenia, I think opportunities and other forms of communication Armenia for first reason that in the interest of Armenia that forces communication, including Turkey, including states, people. So that this.
Cengiz, we've got problems with the connection, it appears. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly.
All right, let's move on to our next question. The European Union has consistently highlighted energy cooperation with Azerbaijan. Now, beyond natural gas, are we now seeing the relationship broaden considerably?
Yes, sure. It's not only natural gas. There is also plans to connect with electricity cables through the Black Sea, under the Black Sea. Of course, also oil supplies are important, even so Azerbaijan is not very big supplier, but in case when Europe became vulnerable after it stopped and plans to completely eliminate oil from Russia, it means that even small amounts coming from Azerbaijan are important for energy security of Europe, plus because it's always it's about price. For example, now liquidated gas is coming from the United States, but its price is higher than, for example, from Russia or from closer countries like, for example, Algeria or even from Azerbaijan. That amounts contribute to energy security and to cost. That's why I think Ursula von der Leyen, among many things that which we will discuss in Baku, I think energy will constitute maybe the major part.
Now, alongside transport, Europe is increasingly interested in green energy cooperation. We're talking about this more and more. Could Azerbaijan emerge as both an energy producer and an energy transit platform?
Yes, sure. Azerbaijan represents actually there are two aspects why Azerbaijan is valuable for European Union. First, as a supplier, but second, as a communicator. Actually, whatever comes down from Central Asia will follow through Azerbaijan and then through Turkey to Europe. And I think in this regard, for example, just yesterday, President of Kazakhstan, Tokayev, he expressed that Kazakhstan oil will go through Azerbaijan to Europe. So connectivity and place that Azerbaijan, can play in this is very important. This of Russian aggression against Ukraine, routes from Russia closed, and also situation with Iran is not clear yet. Right now, Iran still is under sanction, and that's why the best route is through Azerbaijan.
Okay. Cengiz, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I appreciate your contribution and time.
Thanks for inviting. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Now, France's National Assembly has passed a preliminary bill granting special autonomy to the island of Corsica, marking a significant shift in Paris' traditionally centralised governance. While local leaders hail the reform as a historic breakthrough, the legislation faces a steep political battle ahead of the Conservative-controlled Senate.
France's National Assembly has backed the first reading of a bill granting Corsica unique autonomous status. The reform expands the Mediterranean island's jurisdiction over housing, local economy and cultural policy. Carried by centrists, left-wing lawmakers and Corsican deputies, Regional Executive Chief Gilles Simeoni called the vote a historic milestone. For the first time, the lower house has approved direct legislative devolution for the island. Yet, opposition in Paris remains fierce. Right-wing factions, including the National Rally and the Republicans, voted against the bill, arguing it compromises the indivisibility of the French Republic. The real test comes this October in the Senate. The Republicans hold a dominant 131 seats, and Senate President Gerard Larcher is a vocal critic of the package. Still, some political lines are blurring. 15 centrist senators recently declared their support, framing the move not as a loss of sovereignty, but as an act of trust in local governance. To pass, the bill needs Senate approval before hitting a joint parliamentary session for a final 3/5 majority.
The United Nations is taking steps to address its growing financial challenges as unpaid contributions put pressure on its operations. A new reform approved by member states aims to give the organisation more flexibility in managing its budget and resources.
The United Nations General Assembly has approved a major change to its financial rules. It's ended a decades-old system that required the organisation to return unused funds to member states, even when those funds had never been received. The decision follows recommendations from the General Assembly's Fifth Committee, which handles administrative and budget issues. It comes as the UN faces a severe liquidity crisis, with countries delaying payments of their mandatory contributions and forcing cuts across the organisation, including in peacekeeping operations, staffing and humanitarian assistance. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres welcomed the reform, saying the previous system put the organisation's financial stability at risk. Under the new approach, which will be tested for 4 years, the UN will only return unused funds when they are supported by actual cash received. Guterres said the change would help the organisation manage resources in a more predictable way and improve its ability to carry out the mandates given by member states, particularly in peacekeeping. The decision comes after the organisation ended last year with billions of dollars in outstanding payments across its regular budget, peacekeeping operations and international bodies. The reform aims to provide greater financial flexibility as the UN works to address its ongoing funding challenges.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is set to visit 4 Nordic countries next week in a rare regional tour, as Beijing looks to deepen engagement with Northern Europe amid shifting global dynamics. The visit comes at the invitation of the 4 countries' foreign ministers. Mahnur Maktoum has more.
China's foreign ministry has confirmed that Foreign Minister Wang Yi will pay official visits to Denmark, Sweden, Finland and Norway from the 2nd of July until the 8th. Wang will hold separate talks with all 4 foreign ministers to exchange views on bilateral relations and international and regional issues of common concern. The foreign ministry spokesman added that China's relations with the 4 countries have developed steadily in recent years, with fruitful cooperation in green transition, trade and investment, and scientific and technological innovation. He also said that China shares common ground on upholding multilateralism, free trade, and jointly addressing global challenges such as climate change with them. Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Norway were among the earliest European countries to recognize the People's Republic of China and establish diplomatic relations with Beijing. The Nordic countries have also used channels such as the N5 grouping to communicate with Beijing on key issues, including the Russia-Ukraine war. The visit forms part of Beijing's overall diplomatic outreach to Europe at a time when China is seeking to maintain stable ties with European partners amid ongoing trade tensions and an uncertain global environment. Mahnur Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
At least 12 people have died and 7 remain missing after torrential rains caused severe flooding in Ghana, including in the capital of Accra. Officials recorded 169 millimetres of rain fell in one day. Authorities say around 40,000 people have been affected, with more than 7,000 households displaced. The government says it's mobilising around $31 million for emergency relief and flood mitigation efforts as rescue operations continue. The United Nations is sounding the alarm over the growing cost of the Ebola outbreak. It warns the crisis could have multi-billion-dollar consequences for Africa if it isn't brought under control.
The United Nations says the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo could cost Africa up to $3.6 billion and hundreds of thousands of jobs. It warns that the health emergency risks becoming a wider development crisis. Damien Mamar, the UN Development Programme's resident representative, says that with sufficient resources, the outbreak can still be contained and further losses prevented.
I really would like to stress that we are now at a critical moment in this Ebola response. If we have the resources and we step up, we can contain this outbreak and prevent further losses. If we do not, this health emergency risks becoming a much deeper and prolonged development crisis across the region and potentially the continent.
Government data released on Tuesday showed more than 1,300 confirmed Ebola cases, including almost 400 deaths. The cases were recorded in the eastern provinces of Ituri, North Kivu and South Kivu. A smaller number have also been reported in Uganda, and experts warn the disease could spread to neighbouring South Sudan.
Tensions are rising in South Africa over immigration as demonstrations continue in several parts of the country. Authorities have stepped up security measures following the expiry of a government deadline for undocumented migrants to leave. Isabel Nakirya has more.
Time is running out for undocumented migrants to leave South Africa after the June 30th deadline passed. Across the country, thousands of South Africans have taken to the streets demanding that undocumented migrants leave their country. Now, most protests have remained peaceful, but in some townships, there have been incidents of looting and vandalism targeting shops. Now, the police have been deployed in large numbers to help keep order, and several arrests have already been made. In major city centers, businesses have closed early or shut down completely, with many residents staying indoors. Now, authorities say buses are being used to help transport foreign nationals out of the country in an effort to avoid further tensions or attacks. In some areas, including Jamestown, protesters stormed some homes, claiming undocumented migrants were being sheltered there. South Africans are demanding that the government helps improve welfare and jobs that they claim migrants were enjoying. Now they vote to come out to the streets and protest every Thursday until their demands are met. Isabel Nakirya for A News in Kampala.
After the break, we'll continue with the main stories shaping the region. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching A News. Afghanistan's Taliban government says it has carried out strikes on targets along the border with Pakistan, escalating tensions between the two countries. Meanwhile, Pakistan's military said it shot down several drones and warned against further provocation, according to reports. The strikes follow Pakistan air operations on Afghanistan on Sunday that the United Nations said killed civilians. Both sides accuse each other of cross-border attacks, with tensions rising despite a ceasefire agreement reached in October. At least 14 children have died after the roof of a private tutoring centre collapsed in Pakistan's eastern city of Lahore. Punjab's emergency service say rescuers found children and a 30-year-old teacher under the rubble. Authorities say the children who died were aged between 5 and 16 years old, with most of them under 9. Punjab Information Minister says preliminary reports showed that the tutoring centre was unregistered and operating inside a privately owned residential building. Unexploded ordnance remains a deadly threat across Afghanistan. That's according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The agency says around 50 people are killed or injured each month, with children making up most of the victims. Meanwhile, mine action programs face cutbacks due to funding shortages. Tamim Bahis has the details from Kabul.
United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has raised fresh concern over the continuing danger of unexploded ordnance in Afghanistan. According to the UN agency, around 80% of victims in the country are children. OCHA says around 50 people are killed or injured every month in explosions caused by mines, unexploded shells and other remnants of war. Afghanistan remains contaminated with explosive devices after decades of conflict. Many of these devices are found in areas where families live, children play, people farm, or returnees try to rebuild their lives. Children are especially at risk as they may mistake unexploded devices for ordinary objects or encounter them while collecting scrap metal or moving through contaminated areas. According to a report by Save the Children, 338 girls and boys were killed or maimed last year by these devices. Humanitarian agencies warn that reduced funding could leave more families exposed to deadly hazards, particularly in rural areas and places receiving large numbers of returnees. For now, the latest warning highlights how the legacy of Afghanistan's long conflict continues to endanger civilians, especially children, even after the fighting has reduced in many parts of the country. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
New transport links, energy investments and business financing are high on the agenda as regional leaders meet in Baku. The Black Sea Trade and Development Bank's annual gathering is looking at ways to deepen economic cooperation and unlock new opportunities across the region. Narchichek Jahangirli has more.
Regional economic cooperation is in focus in Baku as the 28th annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the Black Sea Trade and Development Bank, or BSTDB, takes place alongside a business forum bringing together government officials, business leaders and financial experts from across the Black Sea region. During the event, BSTDB President Serhat Köksal praised Azerbaijan's economic progress, describing the country as a key transport and logistics hub linking Europe and Asia. He also reaffirmed the bank's commitment to supporting Azerbaijan's sustainable development through new investment projects.
And if the member states' economies are powerful, our bank is powerful in the international financial markets. We have newly issued a bond amounting $350 million in Western capital markets. It was a very successful issuance with lots of investors, diverse investors all over the world. And we will use the proceeding of these issues in our new projects in all member states, including Azerbaijan.
Today's discussions focus on expanding transnational projects in the South Caucasus and the Black Sea region. Key areas under consideration include strengthening support for both transport corridors and energy projects, as well as promoting support for small and medium-sized enterprises in Azerbaijan and other member states.
During the annual meeting, the bank's Board of Governors reviewed bank's performance in 2025, approved its financial statements and discussed the bank's 2026 budget. The Board of Governors also confirmed that Bulgaria will chair the 29th annual meeting in 2027. Headquartered in Thessaloniki, Greece, the Black Sea Trade and Development Bank is a development finance institution of the Organization of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation. It supports public and private sector projects across its 11 member states through loans, credit lines, guarantees, investments and trade finance. Narchichek Jahangirli, Avaz Hajiev, A News.
And that's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates.